I did a good job. Until he had a back injury, opiates became something in my family that really tore us apart at the core. And me, my older brother, my dad, all have struggled with opiate addiction on and off for years since then. I'm currently on methadone and I've been going down on it. But I was clean on Suboxone for 8 years. Then I relapsed. My brother had passed away, and then the pandemic happened. So I was dealing with a lot of different things, and I reconnected with an ex who was using, and I got addicted to fentanyl for like 2.5 years. And also, right before that, I'd been building up my YouTube channel. I got some big breaks, and it was like going really well. And then, I totally fumbled that. But I came back and I was still on like a high dose of methadone, and I was still like had, weight gain, but I came back like a year ago and then I got really into streaming like, about 9 months ago. But totally clean. I call it Cali sober, just smoke weed and drink occasionally. But I was definitely drinking a lot for the Lolcow Live auditions. I was very nervous. Like,
Was there a turning point in your addiction that made like something that made you go, okay, I need to get better?
yeah, I mean, I wanted to get off of fentanyl, it was always, it was never an ideal situation, but I was spending hundreds of dollars a day working in a fine dining restaurant. I started having to do OnlyFans again, doing cam girl stuff. And then I got fired from my fine dining job, and that cut out like the main engine. And I used that time because I was like, when else am I gonna have like a few weeks off of work where I can like be sick for a while? But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, when I DIY'd getting off fentanyl, I didn't sleep for 9 days. I went totally psychotic. I broke into some poor family's home, scared the shit out of them. I
Oh,
reached for an
wow.
officer's gun. I walked into traffic, like I literally ran into traffic, and I was not in reality at all. And I was institutionalized for a few weeks, and the last like year has just been like coming back to reality or the last 2 years or so. So
Yeah.
yeah, like definitely you could say I was in a vulnerable position, and fortunately I never had any real desire to relapse through that process, but I was drinking and like, obviously not in a great state, I would say.
Morning, wasn't there a question that you wanted to ask?
Um, which one? I mean, there's several questions that I that I had
Sorry,
to
I
ask
just dumped
about
a
it.
lot. I just really, I can ramble sometimes. Sorry.
No, I mean it's she pretty much summed it up in summation. I mean, just some of the questions that we had on here were like, what role did it play with your mental health? How did it affect your relationships with other people, moving forward in that aspect too? And then, I understand that there are points, and people don't really understand the struggle with addiction. I mean, me personally, I've seen it within my family. I've never had these problems. Um, but I've seen it throughout my family, whether it be alcohol or hard drugs or um, there's more than just alcohol and drug addictions.
Mm-hmm.
There's food addictions, sexual
Yep.
addictions, stuff like that. So, I
Yep.
mean, what moment did you realize that you had to change? Like, what was your lowest moment to where because there's always that moment of clarity at your lowest moment where you look at yourself in the mirror and like I gotta cut the shit.
Dude, I mean, I've had quite a few of those moments, but one that instantly comes to mind is like, my friends have been kind enough to let me stay on their couch, and they were like supporting me in detoxing, but I couldn't take it, and I like ran like they were trying to like physically restrain me because I was going to go buy drugs basically. I got in a physical fight with like one of my closest friends, and I scared the shit out of like another person. I ran out barefoot all the way from their place in New Haven to mine, like a mile, and I was running into my room because I had my drug dealer's name written down. I deleted it on my phone, but I had it like written down. So it was like this race to get home. And by the time I got to my house, my friends were there, my mom was there, my brother were there, and they were all like literally trying to physically stop me. Um, Sorry, it's
Do you
obviously not like a
think
great memory, but yeah,
do you
it's
think
just
you
like
would have
that kind of
done
stuff,
like
crazy.
the OnlyFans and cam girl stuff had you not have been addicted?
Um, Probably because I always like had I don't know, like some kind of like debaucherous exhibitionist streak in me. Like so I was intrigued by like the, adult entertainment stuff from a very like young age. I thought it was cool. I had like no real hesitation, especially in my friend group. It was very alternative fringe, like punk kids. Everyone was doing weird shit, so it didn't seem that crazy, but obviously, my brain has finished developing now a bit more, and I would obviously do things different. But, I also own that's my life. I've made a lot of mistakes, but, it's you live and you learn.
Do you think
People
there's?
don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't Well, I was just gonna say people don't realize how hard it was growing up in the late '90s, early 2000s. A lot of stuff was everywhere at that time. Me personally, being a early '90s baby, especially after the housing recession, people's parents were really struggling back then, and it was really hard. It was kind of people talk about the recession that happened a few years ago, and it was nowhere near the one in the early 2000s. It was horrible. People were losing
Yeah.
their jobs, they were losing their homes. More drugs were out, especially in the late '90s. A lot of drugs were around at that time,
They were
and
giving everyone OxyContin, and then they just pulled it all
Percocets too.
back. Oh,
Percocets, they get you
Percocet,
weaned
that's
on
what got,
Percocets and Vicodin, and then see. Well, that's the problem with the medical industry. They kind of toned it back after I think it was like 2012. But the
hmm
medical industry would literally give you mass amounts of Percocets and Vicodin, and then they would cut you off instantly. So
hmm
you would literally be not weaning you off slowly, but they would literally cut you off instantly. They'd get you hooked, and then now you're fiending and or
And they used to
geeking.
say it wasn't addictive. Like there was so, they make like documentaries about it now about how fucked up the like Purdue family pharmaceutical company is, and how what a toll it took on American people. We're still in a fentanyl crisis. More than 100,000 people die every year from it. It's taking yeah, it's taking a huge toll on people,
I know in my
and people don't
personal
know what to
life,
do.
4 different people who have died from fentanyl or carfentanil.
Since you were warned to stop
Yeah, it's
spamming, you've
horrible.
now been hidden from the channel, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Lynx, because it is. It's like it just steals lives
It
really
really
easily.
does.
Fentanyl's so dangerous. It changed everything. And that's what I didn't get when I relapsed because I had been addicted to heroin in my early 20s back when it was still heroin. And then I went on Suboxone for 8 years and did fairly well on that. And then, of course, as soon as I got off Suboxone, all of a sudden it's fentanyl. And it grabbed me by the fucking throat. I couldn't quit. Every time I went into a detox, I literally would like run out. I would run, like just leave the facility in a state of like hysteria. It's like just
Well,
nothing I've ever experienced. Like
they're cutting it everything with fentanyl nowadays. Your Vicodin, they're cutting your heroin nowadays. Your
coke.
coke, your crack. That's the scariest thing nowadays is the coke, because it's
Yeah.
everywhere nowadays. Because I live in Vegas and it's everywhere, and then my friend lives in Miami and it's everywhere down there. So I mean, but if it's not mixed
Molly,
with
they
that,
put it
it's
in.
yeah. If it's not mixed with the fentanyl, they mix it with laxatives, which is even like worse for your brain. So I mean. It's just getting to be outrageous, and it only takes like a little bit of that fentanyl for you just to go
hmm
over. Because with the party drug, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, and then all of a sudden it's straight to ODing, straight to
Yep.
death. It's not. You can see the signs. You could get them the shot, get into the hospital.
Nope,
They're
you're
literally
dead.
dying before they get to the hospital or before the ambulance is getting there, and it's horrible.
Sometimes needing multiple Narcans, if they're lucky to get Narcan in time.
And that stuff is strong enough. Narcan will wake you up instantly. So for a drug to be that potent that you need several Narcans,
Well,
that
there was
should
already
tell you.
fentanyl, like Lynx was saying. Now there's carfentanil, and it's just getting more and more extreme and cheaper to make. And it's an absolute state of crisis. And the real risk is like, yeah, it's for people who don't have a tolerance, because I built up the amount I was using, and I had a strong tolerance for a long time. But say if I relapse now, it would take, a tiny amount.
Yeah.
And for the people who think they're doing coke or molly or some other party drug, if you're sniffing a white substance, you're kind of playing Russian roulette, unless you're someone who tests it first, which if you're a party drug person, I would go that route. I personally just don't do any drugs besides weed because they're all lead me astray. So
See,
that's
and
all I can
that I grew
handle.
up through I grew up through the early 2000s, and then 2012 was when I graduated high school, and we had the whole rave scene. Then there was
Mm-hmm.
no like scare, and like I said, I'm not a drug person. I do the same thing. I do the Cali rule,
Yeah.
pretty much. But there was no worry about it back then, and it's just
hmm
it's now it's such a worry, and it's scary nowadays. Um, Do you feel one of the questions that we have is do you feel surprised about all the people that have support you and that have your back after this locale thing and two this whole great situation that you're going through because you do have fans and it's
Mhm.
scary because well no, it's not it is scary but it's also you know well, it is because you went on
Yeah.
locale, you were with Grace, and now you just keep getting more and more and more and more, and then you have LOL Angels and stuff like that, and you guys are getting an even more following, especially you. So I mean, how are your feelings on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, what was the first part of the question you asked? It
Are
was
you like are you surprised on how many people are
oh,
supporting you nowadays?
um, am I surprised? I didn't. I th I think I always knew that like in one of my goals online initially was I had a feeling that there's like other people who are feeling like I feel or going through something like I'm going through. And that's part of the reason I felt, compelled to share that because in like lonely, difficult times I've dealt with, I've turned to YouTube and found like some random fucking channel and listened to it and it like brought me some kind of comfort or realization. So I always was hoping that there would be support there, but it's definitely been more than I ever dreamed of. I literally just having anyone who's invested or enjoys my content and it's like building, just like a community around it has been, I think, a really healthy, fun project overall. And and it helps a lot now because initially when I came back to streaming, the Thorpes were my first YouTube collab. So initially they had a lot more people against me and I was kind of getting attacked from every angle and things were going awry in my personal life. So it was like, kind of extra shitty, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. I feel the support. I still like get in my head with things, but I feel like I'm getting a better grip bit by bit.